Introduce themselves yet? Did everyone introduce themselves as yet? Because
No,
I was actually
panelists-
looking at my email, so I'm
The
sorry.
panelists haven't introduced themselves.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and start with that? If each of the panelists today would please introduce yourselves, what organization you represent. Sheila, if you want to start.
Surely. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for sharing some virtual space with us all today. I'll begin by recognizing that I'm in Springfield, Illinois, which sits on the land originally occupied by the Kickapoo. It is also the site of a race riot in 1908, which helped with the formulation of the NAACP. I come from a farm in East Central Illinois, spent 30 years as a high school teacher of speech, theater, literature, and composition. And for the last few years, about 7 now, I think, I've worked at the Springfield Area Arts Council, where I now serve as executive director. It's a nonprofit organization whose mission is to enrich the community through the arts.
Thank you, Sheila. Heather?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Heather Haig. I work at Ravinia Festival, which is a concert venue up north of Chicago, if you're not familiar. We are a nonprofit as well. We do a lot based around our mission, which is keeping music education in underserved Chicagoland public schools with different music programs. And we support that mission by being the summer home to the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. They have their summer residency with us. We also present all kinds of other performances throughout the summer, from rock, pop, jazz, country, hip hop, to several other different types of chamber music, other orchestras outside of the CSO, as well as some children's programming and some dance programming, and just a lot of stuff happens at Ravinia every year. So I'm here actually, I'm part of the production department at Ravinia, so kind of the backstage, behind the scenes logistical angle of things. But I've actually worked in a lot of other different departments at Ravinia as well, including their box office and communications and a little bit in development as well. So thank you, everybody. It's nice to be here. I look forward to chatting.
Thank you, Heather. And we have Tree Branch.
Hey everyone, my name is Ash Branch, but I go by Tree. Feel free to call me Tree. It should be easy to remember that you were talking to someone named Tree Branch. And appropriately, I come from the Comedy Institution, Second City. We are the training center and the theater that has launched the careers of folks like Keegan-Michael Key, Tina Fey, and a whole bunch of other great people who are probably on some of your favorite shows and some of your favorite movies. What we do at Second City is the training side, so helping students learn how to do comedy in their respective space. We also do a lot of work with corporations and organizations about how we can apply performance models and improvisation models to make you better teams, better performers in your jobs, things like that. So I'll be here to speak to you from the perspective of how does this business and career world intersect with comedy and performance, and what are those really unique intersections, and what's the opportunity in that. And so first, just thank you to UIC et al. For having us here. And thank you, Sheila and Heather, for being on this with me. I'm very excited to hear from both of you and learn from you as well.
Okay. And I'm seeing a lot of faces. I'm glad everyone is showing their screen. It's nice to actually see faces and not just names. All right. Anyone else that would like to introduce themselves to the group?
I'm also a panelist. I'm from the Art
Yes, Myra, I was looking for you and I see all these faces on my screen. There you are. Myra, thank you.
Yes, no problem. So yes, I am, my name is Myra. I am representing the Art Institute of Chicago. I am actually part of the talent acquisition team, and I've been with the organization for about 5 years. I'm very excited to be here today. We definitely every year look forward to this, to the fair that normally happens, but I'm glad we were able to do something a little bit different, and definitely glad to have been invited. So yeah, I do a lot of the recruitment while working with my team, a lot of the recruitment as far as the museum goes and the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. So our team supports both entities as far as recruitment. And I mainly do a lot of recruiting for the internship program at the museum. So I'm really excited to be able to connect with a lot of these students.
Very good. Thank you, Myra. All right, so the first question I have for the panelists, how has the pandemic and recession, how has that impacted your organization and the arts in general? Ash, if you'd like to start with that.
Yeah, for sure. So Second City, we're kind of the definition of needing a live audience in the room to do what we do. But fortunately, we are also an organization built completely out of improvisers. And so when March came and we had to pivot overnight, there was really not a better group of people to be doing that. We were like, all right, we'll figure it out. That's what we do in improv. That's what we're going to do in this organization. So we fortunately already had a digital arm to the business. We already did some work that was pre-recorded. We already made videos and things like that. But truly within 3 weeks, we had moved everything from being live in the theater to digital. And one of the really beautiful opportunities that came out of that we're really fortunate to have is we were able to foster connections with people globally. So folks who may have wanted to take classes with us or wanted to do a workshop for their team or wanted to see a show, but they're posted up in Sweden, they suddenly had the opportunity to engage with us. So it's been a very interesting and very cool process to watch us go from reaching the audience directly in front of us to now having this global network that we're able to work with. And we expect to maintain that even when we do move back live.
Very good. Heather, how has the pandemic affected your organization?
Well, in many ways, as you might imagine, being a live concert venue, we also need our audiences to do what we do. So, initially we postponed or kind of, postponed sales, and we're just kind of holding out. And then initially, hoping that we could come back and we could have some sort of a season in 2020, but ultimately we had to cancel. So all of our in-person events were canceled. That's everything from our entire concert season to all of our big fundraisers that we do, events in, Chicago public schools, as I mentioned before, that we're involved with. So all of those things had to change and kind of go away. Kind of contrary to what Ash was saying, we didn't do a lot online prior to this. We didn't do a lot of content other than, just like little tiny clips, or more so like photos and little stories on our Facebook and social media. But we pivoted, which was, the popular word of 2020, and took on a web series. So we did a lot of actually in-person recordings at Ravinia of just, very small acts, no audiences, obviously, and turned them into a web series and created like weekly episodes called Ravinia TV, and included things like sketch comedy, spotlight on some of the, local community folks that we work with, and just different things like that, different little bits of history from Ravinia, and other artists were incorporated in that as well. But it definitely affected everything that we do. We were forced to kind of put our fundraisers into a virtual format as well, and bring in some, kind of friends of the festival artists to MC a virtual fundraiser, which is normally a big gala with, food and all that stuff. And it was just a completely different feel. But, we tried to do that, and we got creative with, staying in contact with our public school kids that we work with all the time. And, it affected pretty much everything, honestly. We were able to still do a lot. And our biggest goal, honestly, was just trying to stay present in people's minds, and, still communicate and interact with our patrons and our donors, and just general fans of the festival, and our artists too, in some respects. So that's the biggest way we were impacted.
Okay, great. Myra, how are things affected Art Institute? Was that closed then? Did you close, or?
Yeah, so unfortunately we did close from March to about July, I believe. We then reopened, stayed open until November. We closed again in November, and we actually just reopened our doors yesterday. So super excited that it looks like, we're moving in the right direction. But yes, aside from what everyone has just mentioned, moving things virtually, which has been helpful and has given us the opportunity to reach a broader audience and, giving access to more people from wherever they're at. I think aside from that, internally, I think we've also been able, as a staff, to gather more and be a little bit closer connected than what we were before, where meetings in the past were always in person. And now it's just so easy to be in the same meeting with 100 people, with 50 people, and being able to connect with our colleagues. I think that's kind of like the plus side of it just being so simple now to hop on a virtual call and not worry about conference rooms and being booked up and things like that. So I think we've unfortunately had some hardships with, having to lay off people and furloughs and all the bad stuff that has came with it. But on the plus side, I think our community has definitely grown stronger, and we've been a bigger support network for each other.
Thank you. Sheila, how has this affected the Arts Council?
I'm going to start with some numbers from an article in the New York Times last month. Professional creative artists are facing unemployment rates well above the national average. More than 52% of actors and 55% of dancers were out of work in the third quarter of 2020 at a time when the national unemployment rate was 8.5%. Several hundred independent music venues have closed. Art galleries and dance companies have shuttered. Painters and performers weep over canceled shows and tours, salivate over more generous government support in Europe or Asia, and ask themselves if 2021 is the year to abandon their careers. So that's the most pessimistic accounting that I've seen. On a happier side, and again, national, from the Americans for the Arts, a national nonprofit organization, indeed, 95% of respondents to a survey in late 2020 reported a loss of income in the creative sector due to the pandemic, but most of them found ways to supplement their income. They found other employment, 83%. The second most common method, 79%, were able to dip into their savings and support their lifestyle. And some turned to crowdfunding and even into retirement funds, but they survived and they're ready to come back. Locally, some of the things I've noticed is that visual artists have been successful in finding other alternate outlets for their work. Often that's online. Musicians have not been able to work in front of an audience, maybe because no one is hiring or because of their need to safeguard their and their family's health, but they're streaming their performances and raising some income in that regard. Some performers and visual artists have said that their creativity has been stifled because of stress, and others have said it has been heightened because of their need to cope with the stress of the world, and that's brought them to new and different ways to create art. Most theater and music venues may have closed temporarily, but have plans to reopen safely, of course. So that's all sort of optimistic as we're hopefully coming out of this global pandemic. Here at the Arts Council specifically, 2 of our annual fundraisers were COVID canceled. There's limited sponsorship revenue, I've noticed, for virtual events when we pivoted to that. Local businesses are our usual sponsors, but they don't have any money to spare. Some of our programs are grant funded, no program, no grant, so no 10% off the top for administration. So overall, it was just an 11% decrease in revenue, which surprised me when I put those numbers together at the beginning of this year. We received no money from the city of Springfield to re-grant. There were fewer applicants for the re-granting program that we manage for state funding. The Illinois Arts Council agency staff is working remotely, so there have been some challenges with that. The program assistant here chose to work at home rather than the office, but she doesn't have the software and we can't afford to purchase the software to enable some of the tasks she otherwise would be doing. Our bookkeeper has had to quit because of childcare while education has been happening remotely. I'm devoting much more time to fundraising than usual. Some of our programs, as I said, didn't happen. But again, the positive side, our members have been more engaged. Membership dues revenue has increased, and some funders have pivoted to general operating support. Usually they say, if you have a great program, we'll give you money to develop it or to sustain it. But they've said in this regard, we understand that you're going to have a tough time paying the rent, so we'll give you the money anyway. And that's been reassuring. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. That was fantastic information. A little scary information, but very good information, which is a great lead-in for the.
We lost your audio there, Cynthia.
Yeah, sorry, Cynthia, I accidentally muted you.
Shame on you. Okay, thank you. I was wondering, what did I do?
I was trying to let somebody into the room and
Okay,
yeah.
very good. All right, I'm back. All right, as I was saying, this is actually a great lead-in for the next question. As you can see, there's such a great interest in the arts, all forms of the arts, with the great representation we have here today at this program. So with all the doom and gloom, but things seem to be opening up, but things are not. With the layoffs, with grants not being recognized, fundraising is down. What advice can you give to our students who are interested in the arts? What can they be doing now? Should they be applying? Can they be applying? Should they be volunteering? Any insight would be terrific. Who would like to start on that one? So, Heather, great.
Yeah, I think there's a lot you can do, actually. It might be from the comfort of your own home still, but there's a lot you can do in terms of, just reading up on things that you are interested in, doing some deep dives into articles about industries, challenges in industries right now, especially kind of learning how industries are coping with things and how, certain jobs that you are interested in are coping with things and what they think their future is going to be, because ultimately that will affect your future if you're hoping to go into that area. There's just a lot out there. There's videos to watch. There's groups on social media that you can join of, fellow people in the arts communities, all talking about different topics and sharing their experience. And I've been a big fan of trying to give folks informational interviews during this time. All of us kind of have some extra time in many ways. And, just talking to people who have an interest does, I like that. I like being able to talk to people about, the good times and hope that they come back and, talk to them about just different ways to network now and in normal times. And just kind of, it's a good time to kind of just soak up information, honestly, about what you're interested in and prepare yourself for when those jobs ultimately will open up again. Maybe not all of them, maybe less than before, or maybe some will come back a lot slower than others in this industry or in the arts and entertainment in general. But there's a lot that you can do right now, especially like I said, from home. So that's the good news.
Myra, with the Art Institute reopening, are you hiring, or again, what can students do if they're interested in the Art Institute, or again, your advice for students in general, what should they be doing now?
Yeah, I think Heather did touch up on a great point about networking. I think it's a great opportunity to be networking right now, attending these types of events. Being on LinkedIn, I think that's something that a lot of students don't think about, but there are definitely a lot of organizations on LinkedIn actively recruiting for people on LinkedIn, for-profit, nonprofit organizations. We're on there constantly actively recruiting. I think that, the beauty about these types of virtual events, again, being able to do it from anywhere you're at, if you do need to be out of state or out of the country, you can still participate in these virtual events. Which actually I do want to quickly talk about an upcoming event that we have called JAM, which starts on Wednesday. So JAM in the past, which stands for Jobs at Art Museums, has been a one-day event on a Saturday typically, and there has been different programming throughout the day. But because of our situation, we thought it would be better if we did a series this time. So it starts every Wednesday through May 5th at noon. And it's open for all college students. And basically, there is opportunity for you to learn more about what we do. There's a full schedule available on our website, and so you'll be able to see who is the presenter that day. So our goal again is to just get the insight from different professionals from around the organizations so that students understand what it means to be part of an art museum. You'll quickly learn that you don't have to have an art history degree to be part of our organization. There's so many more opportunities. So again, that starts Wednesday. You do need to register. It's completely free. And then it's every Wednesday through May 5th. So things like that are still happening. We are hiring full-time roles. We are also hiring internships. So our internship program recently started back up. This spring was our first term after having closed down. So things again are looking up. For spring, all of our interns are fully remote right now, and they are paid experiences. And actually, the museum recently committed to only providing paid internships moving forward. So super exciting, yeah. And so yeah, we will be getting started on recruiting for summer by like the end of this month, early March. So those postings are not live yet, but those are, we're going to have more opportunities to come for summer as well. We don't know at this point if it will be a fully remote experience or a hybrid. It really just depends on the situation. But those opportunities are definitely still there. And not only at our organization, I have seen other organizations that are still continuing to recruit for internships, for fellowships. So they are out there. It is just a matter of taking the time and applying and doing your research.
I'll
Beautiful.
follow along with that to say, yes, we're hiring. We have room for an intern that would be part-time, and this is based in Springfield, the Prairie Capital. We're also looking to create and fill a new position. The board realized that we need increased fundraising in case this ever happens again. And so we're looking for someone in marketing and business who has that sense as well as a concern for the arts. People are realizing how important the arts are. And I'll pause just for a moment to let all of you attending think of the examples, the new renaissance of the arts, the creativity that you've seen during pandemic and protest. Good. Realize your own creativity, use it in novel ways. Realize that creativity is a soft skill sought by employers. So just having an arts-related field in your training, in your education, counts on resumes these days. Keep practicing your art. Look for training opportunities, if others have mentioned, and networking. Research current trends so that you can jump on them as soon as your degree is in hand. One of the trends I've been looking at lately is neuro arts, N-E-U-R-O, neuro arts, the intersection of arts and health and well-being. And be alert to opportunities. And I'll put my information in the chat box in case you want to be an intern here.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yeah, I'll yes and to what's
Yes,
been
please.
said. First off, Sheila, Myra, thank you so much for letting us know about the internships that you have that are paid. That is such an important thing. That's a personal kind of hot button issue for me, and that just makes my heart very happy. And to Janelle, who referenced Ratatouille musical, yeah, exactly. That's what we're seeing is that there's a beautiful thing that has happened through this pandemic, where the barrier to entry has been leveled a bit. And of course, this is going to come from a perspective that is from, the entertainment production side, since that's where I work. But you don't have to have a film crew and a set and all of these different pieces at your disposal to start creating. Everyone is in their living rooms, everyone is in their homes. So what tends to happen when you're starting to create your art is you get in your head, you start thinking, is it good enough? Is it ready to be put out there? Should I send this to someone? And then a lot of times we back off of what we really want to be producing. What's great is that you have this time where everyone, for the most part, is working with the same level of technology or space or whatever that you are. And of course, there are variations to that. But for the most part, we're in a similar bucket. And what that means is you can get those at-bats done. You can create your TikToks. You can put them up. You can test your ideas, see what lands, and take that fodder back. And what's very cool in this is that by doing that, you can also be building your own portfolio without waiting for someone to invite you to build it for them. So I think a lot of times we tend to think about our career in the arts as someone is going to hire me and pay me to do the exact thing that I want to be doing right away. You don't need that permission from that person right now. I think given the situation, given how much is shifted, given how much is unknown, think about what's the industry I want to be in? How could I get close to that? Get creative with the ways that you could allow yourself to get close to that. I'll tell the story of our executive producer. He was our executive producer for 25 years at Second City. He's now our chief learning officer because he just likes to learn about improv all day. It's a great job to have. But he started as a dishwasher. He said, I want to be somewhere in the performance and production space. No one was hiring at the time. He's like, I'll wash dishes, knowing that people invest in people that are reliable, that are compassionate. They will care about people and they will try to advance them and promote them at some level. So if there is something that you see that is industry adjacent, but maybe not the exact job you thought was for you, I'm thinking, if there's a copywriting position or marketing, these are really great spaces to get your foot in the door, because a lot of times an artistic perspective is what they're really missing and what they're really craving. For my own life, I decided to make a strategic decision. When I was 16, I knew. I met someone from Second City in a workshop when I was in North Carolina. I was like, well, my life goal is now to save up and move to Chicago and do what it takes to do that. But that takes money and that takes planning. So I took a job in a marketing and business consulting organization, did that for a set amount of time, but did it intentionally so that I could save up. I lived at home, which was a sacrifice I made, but it meant that I was able to move to Chicago and have like a good sort of nest egg to support myself. And then I used that time to create buffer so that if I needed to purchase a camera or if I needed to, get something edited, I could do that. So I'd really encourage you right now to think about what are other ways that you can position yourself better down the road, and see those not necessarily from a lens of loss. Obviously we all want to go out and be in exactly the role in the field we want to be in, but that's very rare. And right now, all the things that are going on in the world are out of your control. So think more about what can you control, and within that control, how can you best position yourself to stand out? And what can you do to also give back to the organizations that you might want to get involved in? If struggling theaters are online trying to get people to go to their shows, go to those shows, be in that trench with them, show your support, be a name that they remember seeing over and over and over. And I promise you, human beings are human beings, and artists are human beings that love to take care of each other. So they will not forget that. And the last thing I'll say is reach out, take people up on their offers to help. I know a lot of times someone says, and I'll say this to you too, add me on LinkedIn. It's very easy to find Tree Branch at Second City on LinkedIn. Send me your stuff. If you're working on a sketch or a comedy routine, let me know. Like, I'm happy to help. When someone gives you an offer like this and they're from inside an industry, a lot of times you're like, oh, they're busy. I don't want to bother them. I'll hold back. Don't do that. They made the offer. They are an adult. They know what they're doing. Take them up on the offer and really use every resource that you have to your advantage.
This is incredible advice. Thank you so much. Kathy from University of Illinois Springfield, you had something in the chat about an upcoming program. Would you want to talk about that?
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity. So our Career Connections Expo, which is our big job fair for this semester, is taking place on March 4th, and it is open to the community. So it means all of you who are searching for jobs or internships are welcome to take advantage of that. I put the link in the chat. You can also find it on our website, which is uis.edu/career. And of course, all of you panelists who mentioned you have internships and full-time opportunities coming up, talk to us. We would be happy to have you included in the fair.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Cindy, if I could just chime in on what Ash was saying, you can support your local artists. As a matter of fact, every Friday night, there's a local Chicago area jazz piano player, Brian Culbertson. I don't know if you know him, but he broadcasts live every Friday on Facebook and then later on YouTube. And if you look at the production, it's first class production that he put himself together. And he says he even taught himself throughout this pandemic, but a very creative man. I'm glad he's from the Chicago area. And then Rosa's Blues Bar also transmits live on Fridays and Saturday nights. And yeah, you can support your local artists. I do send whatever I can. I don't make that much. I work at UIC, but yeah, support our artists. There's a lot of creativity out there and just a lot of concerts going on. So thank you for mentioning that. Just wanted to chime in on that.
Beautiful. Any other comments about how students what they can be doing, and a little pep talk for everyone on board?
I have just a really quick
Yeah.
comment that this spring term, we actually have 2 UIC students with us.
Oh.
So I just wanted to throw it out there that we definitely are actively recruiting UIC students.
Beautiful, beautiful. Jaime, you received some questions via email, so maybe we could address those and then we can open up in general to any other questions.
Yeah, actually I received a few via email. Josh, I saw Josh was in the room. If he's still around, if you'd like to ask your question, you can certainly do so at this time. You can either put questions in the chat or you can unmute yourself. I think our panelists would like to hear you ask your question. So Josh, if you're in the room, I know I saw you earlier.
I'm here.
There you are. Great.
It's like just a joint 2 questions, but the first one I was asking is, what is the best way to present yourself when trying to find a career, like just in general, because I'm a graphic design major and I just want to like kind of see what the general presentation should be for any artist or whatever in that sense. And also what should you do to kickstart your career? Like what should you do with your portfolio, or how should you communicate with outside sources, or just like kind of getting yourself out there, having like finding those connections in that sense. And I know LinkedIn is a big way of doing that, but like, is there any other high valued ways to communicate with companies and all that stuff that are looking for employees?
I'd be happy to take that one first if we're fine with that. And Joshua, thank you for having your cat on screen. It means a lot to me. And I think it's such a great question. And so one of the things that we know is if you're looking for a job, the first thing that happens is you go to an Indeed or you go to kind of the LinkedIn listings, and then you have to submit the standard application. And then you're kind of in this void against hundreds of other people with very little control of what happens. On the other side of that void, there is a person whose job is to bring in interesting talent that is going to stay with the organization. They want to find someone that they can nurture, that can grow, and they don't want them to just come in and walk out the door. So this person has a stake too in finding the right fit. So what I would say is, Sure. Throw your application into that bucket. Try to make it stand out in some way. Joshua, you specifically being a graphic designer should have no trouble with that. Create something that looks
Right.
appealing, right? Like if you want to be separated, don't be afraid to put some color on there, put some imagery on there, shake it up, make it something that they remember. And then this is the piece that I think a lot of people miss. That same person has some sort of title, HR, hiring manager, recruiter. Myra, can tell us probably a whole lot more about this. You can find them on LinkedIn. You can usually find or figure out what's their email information. I imagine Myra's is like M. Dot or her name, at our institute. Like you can figure that out and then message and say, hey, I just submitted this thing. I wanted to go ahead and reach out to you because I wanted to make sure you saw that I submitted it. This is why I'm so intrigued by your company. This is what I want to bring. Like don't be afraid to follow up and to try to really drive it home that you are not just sending out a cast of applications every day and that this is a drop in a bucket. If there's a role that you see that you want, go after it. I got hired at Second City when I did not have they wanted 7 years of experience in the role. I had 2. On paper, I did not have what they were looking for. I built a website. I made an application video that I had edited. I put these things together over the course of a weekend and I sent them to a hiring manager, and it didn't take that long to do. Just a few templates, but because it was so different and because I took the extra initiative, they're looking at this and thinking, okay, someone who's going to go through this much effort just to get into the door, imagine how much they are going to contribute once they're actually here. So if you don't see something, if you're like, oh, they want 5 years of experience or they want this or they want this, those are what they would love to have on the wish list, but don't count yourself out over some bullet points on a page. If you no one knows you better than you know what you can bring. So figure out what is the best way to showcase that and how can you present that and how can you continue to drive that home in a way that is outside of just the monotony of submit, apply, apply.
Any other comments from the panelists?
I'll say a little bit. That was fantastic. I think it's very true that, as, folks that are sifting through resumes a lot, there's somehow you can tell if people are just hitting, apply. And the people that, put some thought and feeling into their cover letters, you notice and you remember. The people that really express that deep interest in what you do or what your organization does, it comes across. And, if it's done in a cover letter, that's amazing. If it takes a little more effort, through LinkedIn or whatever it may be, that's great too. We're all inundated sometimes with, applications for certain positions in some of these, high profile places, like Ravinia gets a ton of applications. I'm sure Second City does too, and Art Institute. So, you have to give us a break too, if we don't respond right away, but it really is that extra effort, showing that you want to be in this industry and not just tossing off a resume. And I think it really helps too to talk to other people that that have applied there. Like, do you know somebody who has a connection in any way? And have them reach out to the person that they know, and maybe they can connect you with somebody that you can speak with, or is happy to start an email conversation with you. I get that a lot. Former PAs that worked under me that send me their friends that are coming into a good time in their school career to take on an internship at Ravinia. So I love those connections too. And, some of these big organizations, it's not hard to find a connection, especially if you're already in kind of the arts world in your school or in your, your city. So definitely. And I do love the graphics on resumes. I will say that they're very eye-catching.
I did want to ask everyone, the panelists, and some of you have already addressed this, but if you can get that crystal ball out, what do you think will be happening in the rest of 2021, 2022? We've all had to pivot the industry. All of your industries have, as they say, the great word, pivoted. What do you think will be happening latter part of 2021? Some of you are reopening in some capacity. Any other thoughts on what's going to be happening, how things will be changed?
I'll talk again.
Sure.
It's a hard question to answer, honestly, because even in our organizations trying to plan for later this summer it's almost impossible. I mean, you can plan for a week out and things might be the same, but 2 months from now, it could be completely changed again. But I think that's what we're all trying to do. We're all trying to plan as much as we can, kind of, it's like specific planning around the inability to plan. It's difficult. And I think you're going to see a lot of people just trying to do what they can in the restraints that they have. We're probably still going to see social distancing for a long time. We're going to see mask mandates. We're going to see, maybe testing in certain venues and stuff like that. Performances are going to change. One of Ravinia's big challenges is, getting an orchestra on stage. How do you do that when people need to be distanced? You can't fit a normal size orchestra on stage, things of that nature. And, I think our industry in general is going to be affected for a long time, maybe not in every aspect of the entertainment industry or the arts that you can see, but there are certain things that are going to take a long time to come back. Those big full venues of just, sweaty people rocking around to music, it's going to take a while to come back. Even big conferences and stuff like that happen on a regular basis throughout the city of Chicago. Like so many conferences happen in the city, even those are going to take a while to come back because of travel restrictions and, again, gathering sizes. And, that's a ripple effect throughout, workers that put on those events. And, maybe the events are smaller, so it requires less workers. So it's going to affect them for years to come. I think we will get back to normal. It's just going to take a while. So in the meantime, I think you're going to see that creativity continue to grow and blossom. And, I've been blown away by some things that I've seen in terms of how people have gotten creative from, individual bubbles at a concert to, even pods on a lawn where it's like a little mini stage that people are sitting on, like some really creative things. And I think you're going to continue to see that as we navigate through a very not normal 2021. I think we all had the hope that it would be much more normal, but I don't think that's going to be the case. But slowly but surely, I think a lot of the normalcies will come back. It's just going to take some time.
Bree or Sheila, Myra?
I'll offer this from Randy Cohen. He makes his living as a researcher and statistician for arts and cultures fields nationwide. So he's a great example of someone who loves the arts, but has a business numbers math background. So Randy Cohen says this: when we get to the other side of the pandemic, I believe the arts will be among our greatest assets in helping the nation to recover. The arts are kindling for the economy, small investments that deliver big returns. The arts provide shared and meaningful experiences in public spaces, a community connection that heals the loneliness caused by isolation and safe distancing. The arts are on the right side of what needs to be done to rebuild and heal our country. And people newly trained can be at the forefront of that.
Wow, beautiful. Myra or Tree?
Sure.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing a more and more of an increase in hybrid events. So what that means, and requests for this, we're navigating this now, and everything Heather said absolutely applies to us as well. So I won't repeat the wheel on that one. But the idea of having performers on a stage live, but that being streamed to an audience that's virtual, that's what we're seeing with hybrid. But something else that's interesting there is we're seeing a lot more creativity in terms of these small, intimate, one-off experiences. So thinking devised theater, or I'm part of a production that's going on where it's a choose your own adventure show where the audience votes, and depending on what scene they vote for, that takes you to a new room. So there's different actors all throughout who are in these different rooms. And it's like this intimate setting that allows, you know, as we sort of think about, we can't scale out, right? We can't bring in audiences of 500 and stuff them together. How do we make something really specific, unique, and unforgettable for this group of 6 or 12, or for this small cluster on Zoom? So with that in mind, it's kind of this fun challenge and invitation to come up with things that can be bespoke and kind of one of a kind and never before seen and never seen again, which is also a fun invitation to test your limits, play with things you might not usually do because the stakes are a little lower. You know, it's 6 people watching versus 600, like that's a bit of a weight off the shoulders. So there's some fun to be had definitely in the reopening process to come up with different ways to engage smaller audiences and make something that feels really special for them. And when you do that, they're then invested in you as an artist because you created something for them. They're going to want to support you back.
Beautiful.
I just quickly wanted to add that, you know, as many of you already mentioned, you know, there's so many unknowns and we don't know what's to come. As I briefly stated, we are reopening our door, or we reopened our doors yesterday. And I really, as much as I encourage you all to slowly going into these spaces, I really hope everyone can respect the rules. I think that's something that our teams that are on site are really going to be strict on. And I really hope that if you're out there to be respecting those rules, whether you are at a museum or at a restaurant, it's those things that are going to let us to continue to remain open. I think also as far as like the recruitment side of things, you know, our positions have slowed down, but there are still some key roles that we need to fill in order to keep the organization running. Internships, I'm so glad the museum has, you know, committed to moving forward with internships. We understand that it can sometimes take away from a full-time employee, like their time, but it is the greater good. So our organization does want to be able to provide those type of opportunities, give back to students, and open up those doors for students to, you know, have that first step into an organization, like a nonprofit or a museum. So yeah, I mean, again, there's so many unknowns, but I think I am a little bit more hopeful as we see the museum reopen and staff that needs to be on site is there, although most of us are still remote. That's something else I wanted to bring up, that we've learned to understand that although, yes, there are very important key people that need to be on site to reopen the museum, the majority of our staff is still at home, meaning we can still do all of our jobs from home. And I know it was a lot of hesitancy in the beginning, like, how are we going to do this? Even prior to the pandemic, our office was already starting to do like a 1 day working from home, but there was so many restrictions, like it could only be 1 day, you couldn't have any meetings that day. But we've realized quickly that this is all possible from home, and there's so many jobs out there that you can do from home.
Fantastic insight. Thank you so much. I'm going to take one of the questions that popped up in the chat from Alexis. Her question is, for those of us who are lucky enough to be hired during this time, are salary negotiations still appropriate? Is the opportunity/experience more important than the money we make, even though paying back student loans is very intimidating? Comments?
I'll quickly answer. I think negotiation is super important and it's totally appropriate. I think once we're ready to make you an offer, we are willing to have that talk. And if at the end we don't reach the number you want to be at, then it falls on you. Like we already know we want you. We already know that you did a great job interviewing. You can bring so much already. So it's definitely, don't be intimidated, and it's definitely worth it to negotiate. Obviously, don't overdo it. do it appropriately, but we still see it all the time, and it's a conversation, and it's an appropriate conversation too.
I'll
Yeah,
chime in.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Heather. No, you go.
I was just going to say briefly, it's important to absolutely, still, fight for what you think you deserve for a position, even during this time. The worst they can do is say no, they don't have it in the budget. But it's also good experience for you for future negotiations and other jobs and other positions. And I think when it comes to internships, I think you need to keep that in mind. Are you applying for a job? You can't usually negotiate internship pay. You're lucky to get paid in the arts in an internship. So that's something to keep in mind. And, it is unfortunate sometimes when things like, needing that income limit you from taking on an internship because maybe it doesn't pay enough for you to live off of. Those are unfortunate situations. But, it's, sometimes the experience can be valuable enough to you to take on certain things that, might not have the monetary benefits that you need. And in those cases, maybe it's something, or maybe you have to find something that can kind of work with, another job or something to that nature. Like, don't give up on internships completely because, that you can't live off the income. Just try and find unique ways to still get those experiences, or take an internship that, doesn't have as large of a time commitment or something to that effect.
Alexis, I appreciate you asking this question. I think it's probably something that's on a lot of people's minds and hearts, and it's a stressful time, and it's a very it's a candid question. I love that. One of the things that I think you're going to hear a lot right now is people talking about protecting their cash flow or budgets being cut. So when you're looking at that, if you're not able to negotiate the salary that you really would want out the gate, what you can do instead is, in respect of the cash flow and in respect of them not necessarily having it at this moment, is bake into your contracts as part of the negotiation touch points that you can have that conversation. So I want to come in at this level, I'll agree to that. If in my contract we know we're going to revisit this at 6 months, or we're going to revisit this at a year or 2 years, and also have the conversation about what you want your trajectory to be during that time. So, because what can happen is, if you are in a role and you end up sort of taking on more to prove your worth, a lot of times we get kind of busy, and so we don't record all of those things that you're doing that you're really adding value with. Make note of them in a documented on paper way. We always think we'll remember them. We won't. And then have that information so that when those check-ins come up, you're prepared, you know what you're adding, you know the value you're bringing. And then that way, when cash flow is, evened out a bit more, you're able to really fight for what you're worth.
Those are all pieces of great advice. I'll offer this. If an organization can't give you more money, so it's a hard stop on salary, talk to them about benefits. Could they give you a flexible schedule, remote work? Could they increase your paid time off? Can they pay for some professional development, or at least give you paid time for professional development? And those kinds of things might further the negotiation beyond there's no money.
Very good. All right. If anyone else has a question, I just wanted to mention, Kathy, thank you, from University of Illinois Springfield. She added in the chat a terrific link regarding salary negotiations. So please check that. That's a great link. If anyone else has a question, please unmute yourself and feel free to ask.
Yeah, there wasn't some questions emailed in by Aisha, but I noticed she's in the room. If you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your questions, you certainly can. And those of you entering questions within the chat, you're also welcome to unmute yourselves to ask questions at this time, because I notice there's quite a few of them in there.
Thank you. Yeah, so one of the questions that I had was, what advice do you have for artists who are about to graduate college and are looking to pursue a career in the arts during this time?
What area of the arts are you referring to?
I guess it could be really any area, but I'm a theater major myself, so I guess theater.
I think, I mean, we gave sort of our baseline of like our best practices and advice. Is there something, Aisha, that you specifically are kind of wanting us to dig deeper on?
Yeah, sure. So I know for me, like a really big um fear, I guess you could say, that's not really the right word, but something that I'm really concerned about is the auditioning process, and not being like being out of a job for an extended amount of time after graduation, because being a student, I work on campus and I'm used to getting paid regularly. So
Hmm.
when I graduate, that's a concern that I have, that I won't be able to get cast or find a job with my skill set, and yeah, I'll have to rely on my parents.
I think that that's where I'd revisit what I said, earlier around look for things that maybe are a little bit out of the wheelhouse that you think you should stay in. And not because this is anything to do with your talent or your potential or where your career will go. This is everything to do with this landscape that we literally cannot control or predict. Like Heather mentioned, it's like we're making plans just for the sake of knowing we have to change those plans. Like it's kind of this futile act. So for you, I would say try to create reels, try to create some content, show yourself in those different character situations. Have content that you can own and put out when you're going to, when you're going to talent agencies, that kind of a thing. You can take control over that, and then look for other things that can bolster you. So if it means taking a part-time gig somewhere else, because that is what is going to give you that stability and security. You mentioned it's like it's not a fear. Well, it's also okay if it is. We're all very scared of a lot of things right now across the board, and that is normal and that is natural. We are human beings in a completely challenging, crazy situation. So do the things that you need to do that will give you that security to then be able to create on top, because often it's very hard to create when our minds are in a place of panic or am I going to be okay? Because that's not the thing keeping us alive right now. So if you are able to kind of separate a bit, I find that especially in times of uncertainty coming out, and if you're able to separate a bit, the JOB exchange of money for thing that I am doing from my career, my passion, my purpose, it allows you to get a little more flexible and malleable with what you could be doing to get yourself to where you want to go, even if where you want to go is not available right this day. And usually that time, if you're, doing all the other things that Sheila and Heather and Myra have talked about, like getting engaged with other groups and applying for internships and just putting yourself in those circles, that day comes a lot sooner than you think, because people, when things are opening up and people are looking left and looking right and saying, who was in our corner this whole time, they remember you.
Great. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I'll add on to that a little bit. Working kind of backstage and in that environment, I often have people that are applying that, want to work essentially more of an office job in the future. They want to do booking, they want to be an agent for musicians or artists, and they want to work, as a producer or whatever it may be, not necessarily backstage. One of the things that I always tell them is like, if you want to work with artists, or if you want to be the artist, even if you want to be the one on stage, it's only going to help you to take on some of those roles that you're surrounded by as an artist. So if you want to know what the people behind the scenes are doing when you're on stage, for you to have that knowledge is only going to help you to know what the people that are kind of in the trenches are doing when you're the one on stage, or when you're the one booking the artist, to know how your crew operates, how your audiences operate. Taking on all of those things it makes you more well-rounded in that industry, honestly. So even if you're not, doing, like everyone has said already, the exact thing that you want to do, you're still taking on very valuable skills that can only make you more valuable in the future.
There were a couple questions in the chat about being a freshman or sophomore and getting an internship. Is that even possible? Can they get something? Any suggestions for freshmen, sophomores looking to get involved? Any suggestions? Especially for an internship. Is it possible?
Yeah, I was just about to reply. So yeah, so while we do have some internships that are specifically towards juniors and seniors or master degree students, we also have internships that are open to all undergrad students. So it's really about reading the description and seeing what those requirements are. We definitely have those opportunities. Every summer, we're not doing it this summer, but we typically do a summer academy open for 15 local students. And those students have to be either incoming freshmen or sophomores already, or incoming sophomores. So that's another big like summer program that we do that is geared specifically towards those freshmen and sophomore students. So I do believe there are opportunities. I have noticed that it might be less of an opportunity for those freshmen and sophomore students. But again, it's all still a great time to continue building your network, attending events, things like that, getting noticed. But yeah, just really reading those descriptions and seeing if it's open to all students, because we do have some opportunities there.
And would you be taking volunteers as freshmen and sophomores?
Yeah, so we definitely do have volunteers. Volunteers do operate throughout through a different department. We have a whole different volunteer department, and those volunteers are really open to anyone. It is just filling out a form, but I don't know how it's working right now because we just reopened. But yeah, there is definitely a whole other department that manages volunteers.
Cindy, can I add another suggestion
Please.
as well? I would also encourage students to look at the departments on campus that might be able to use your services if you don't qualify or aren't at the point at internships for outside agencies. Like in our office, we have marketing people who work on flyers and creating visual products. We do a number of videos and we have students working on that. We have a student team that's setting up a series of Instagram Live. So I would encourage you to think a little more broadly about where you can apply your interest in arts, because you could do that potentially on campus and then market that as, here's how I've done it with this organization, here is how I could do it later with your organization as well.
I'll
Great.
add on too real quick. I was just going to say, even if there's somewhere that you really want to be an intern, but because of, your age or, being a freshman, limits you in what you can do with them, ask if you can shadow somebody, even just for a day or two. I've done that countless times in my time at Ravinia, where someone just follows me around all day, and they learn a lot because, we do a lot in our days in the arts. So, be open to asking some of those kind of what might feel like an awkward question, to be like, can I tail you for a day? And, a lot of places, if they can do it, will allow you to do it, because, people want to, I think in the arts especially, share what they do with people that really want to know what they do. So ask about shadowing.
I also just quickly want to note that the first job you have straight out of college is probably not going to be the same job that you have years later. So keep that in mind. I think somebody already mentioned it, that it's a journey. Like if you eventually, your goal is to be, let's say, at the Art Institute of Chicago, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have it, or you're maybe not completely ready for it straight out of college. Go, feel free to explore other opportunities, gain that experience, connect with people, and you'll see quickly that those competencies you'll be able to carry over into your next job. I started off straight out of college at a family-owned business. I was an administrative assistant. I was there for 2 years. But as I was nearing my 2 years, I talked to my supervisor because I felt like I wasn't going anywhere. And I told her my goals, and she said, okay, you want to be eventually in HR? And I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to do. So she slowly gave me like HR tasks. So I was then in charge of like payroll and checking new hire paperwork, things like that. So, that manager was a really great support system to get me to my next place. So just keep that in mind.
I'd also add, because I'm seeing kind of a lot of questions about what about my major? Are people gonna want to hire me? I have this major. I think your major is going to matter a lot less than you think it matters to people. I am a psychology major with, ready for this, women's and gender studies minor, religion minor, theater minor. I am the poster child of unemployability, quite literally. But it doesn't matter. What people want to know is, can you think? Can you problem solve? Can you communicate? Like, what is the skill set they're looking for, and how does you being in that major give you a specific take or a perspective on that skill set that makes it valuable? Having an artist that knows how to connect to how people feel and how they think and what moves them is incredibly powerful when you're talking about marketing or sales or something where you need to know how do people think, what moves them, right? So like, think a lot less about your major. People usually don't care. Think a lot more about what is your skill set? What do you bring? And why is your set of experiences, your set of majors make you specifically suited to whatever the role is that you're looking for? Because that, if you can convey that, you should not have that many problems. No one has ever been like, oh, I'm very concerned about this theater minor that you're bringing me. It's not relevant. Like if you're able to communicate all the things you can do in the role, that's what they're here for. So let some of that pressure go on yourselves a little bit.
Very good.
Yeah, Cindy, there
Yeah.
was another question that was emailed in, but I noticed he's in the room. Connor, I noticed you're in the room. If you'd like to ask your question now, you certainly can. Or I can just read your email.
Hi. I was studying like arts and policy, like cultural policy. So I was kind of intrigued. I think Sheila was kind of touching on it. As much of the arts sector's business models were affected negatively by the pandemic, how can expanding state arts initiatives and funding help kind of reconcile from the past status quo of like a culture war where the arts have kind of been swept under the rug in terms of funding?
Connor, I will point you toward a statewide nonprofit, Arts Alliance Illinois. Their advocacy work has been top-notch for years, and their point person there is Jonathan Vanderbrug. You can find him on their website. He's very approachable. That is an organization in Illinois that works on statewide and federal level advocacy. Their last big success, Illinois is the first state in the country to have an arts indicator mandated for public schools, which means that one of the ways that the quality of a public elementary or secondary school is measured is by their offering of arts curriculum to their students and the number of students engaged in quality arts work. The Arts Alliance Illinois knew that was important, and you can tell I care about this because the more students engage with the arts, not only does it improve their educational take, it improves their quality of life, it helps them with self-care, and it makes them arts consumers and arts practitioners as adults. And the world needs more of those. So that's one example of how advocacy work can make a real impact and is achievable.
Thank you.
I have a very practical question for the panelists. There's always an issue about resumes. Do I get real creative with my resume? And I've seen some really funky resumes and some very traditional resumes. Many times the concern is it's going through a system. If it gets too artsy, too creative, it will not go through the system. Can you address what your organization uses and what your suggestion is for someone submitting a resume in response to an internship or part-time, full-time position? Is it best to go more traditional so it does go through, or, you know, again, any input would be great.
Well, I can speak for the Art Institute. The system are these eyes. We do not go through an electronic system. It's our whole TA team that does review resumes. Like I mentioned, me particular in regards to the internship program. I think for me, it really just depends on the position you're applying for. Like if you are applying for a graphic design position, show us that you are a graphic design person and you're, you know, be creative on your resume and your cover letter. Right now, I'm actually working on a director of marketing role with a recruiter, and they are directors of marketing that have very plain resumes, and that just shows you a little bit about what the work they do. But yeah, so I think it does depend on the role that you're applying for. I think something important to make sure you include are your extracurricular activities, the organizations you're part of, you know, and if you're part of if you hold like leadership positions in those organizations, make sure to include those, your volunteer experiences. Those things go a long way, especially for internships. You know, tell us your story in your cover letters. If you did meet somebody or, you know, at a recent event, tell us that you've recently met X, Y, and Z from the organization, and that's why you're applying. But yeah, I definitely would encourage you to put the time and effort into those cover letters and resumes.
I think a good, and Myra, everything, yes, and to all of that. And I think a good guiding light in any career situation is consider your audience. What would they care about? What do they want to know? You know, and the role is a part of that. So when Myra talks about marketing, yes, we want to know, can you position something, can you position a product well, or a service or an offering well? At the end of the day, a resume, an application, this is all sales. You're selling yourself and your skill set. And I know some folks might like balk at the idea of like sales. What a horrible word. But you need to be able to convince someone else that you are the right person and you are the right fit over everyone else. So I think some of the common tropes that I see people fall into that kind of make them less appealing is when you do that kind of templated form letter, cover letter that's very, you can see by my experience and that I am the right candidate for this. It's like, we know what it looks like when you copied the like Indeed cover letter template. We've seen it a million times. Tell us the story. Let us get to know you. Give some personal connection. The why is often missing from that. Why do you want this job? What is driving you? Where's the passion and why is that passion there? What do you see as something that you could help the organization do long term? If there's any ideas or fun, creative things that you've already thought of, like I noticed that you are not doing work in this area. I think there could be opportunity. I'd love to explore that with you. Bring as much of your own, I guess, agenda and story to the table as you can, because no one is going to do it for you. No one's going to pull it out of you. No one's going to fish for it. If you don't present it, people won't know it's there. So I think less than thinking about, is there too much blue on this resume, or is there not enough yellow or whatever? Get rid of all that a little bit. Is it clear what you're saying? Is the person on the other end going to resonate with it? And is it what they're interested in hearing? And I think if you can stay by those things, you should be in a pretty good position, except for Joshua, who needs to have a very graphically appealing resume.
Any other comments on that?
I'll jump in just a little bit. You ladies are exactly right. I think it's also important to, when you're reviewing your own resume, to try and read it from the perspective of someone else that might not have done the job that you did. You know, is this language that you're using, or these little descriptions of the job that you just summarized going to make any sense to someone else? Are you using a term that's more centric to the job that you're leaving and only makes sense to them, but not to anybody else outside of that industry or that job in particular. So I think that's what I come across sometimes. And I was guilty of it too when I first started writing my own resume. I was like, this makes sense to everybody at, Ravinia, but outside of here, no one's going to know what the heck I'm talking about. So, be very cognizant of that when you're rereading it. And then, absolutely, try and get yourself and your personality across, but also don't write a novel. You have to be cognizant also of, the length of the things that you're including, the formatting sometimes. I mean, I've gotten just like a block of just text, I'm like, use paragraphs, some of those certain things that I think people sometimes forget sometimes. But when we see that, when we open that up as like a hiring manager, we're just like, oh gosh, I don't have the mental space for this right now. It's a tough one. So, follow those forms a little bit in some cases, but definitely try and get your enthusiasm for the position across and why you think you would be a good fit. And, I do love when people, say I have this deep interest in this and I would love to see how it would, translate into a position with you, and like really just expressing the desire to have a conversation and kind of talk about, what you can do, what we do as an organization, how you can come together. So.
Cindy, I was just going to say, if you are not sure how to present yourself, what to put on your resume, what it should look like, please make an appointment. We're on Handshake now. You can make your own appointment on Handshake. Come and talk to us because we know we can give you good advice. So if you're struggling, make an appointment. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, I had an appointment this morning, which relates to the question that was in the chat right now. And that is, how long is too long for a cover letter? I always fear I overshare my cover letters and edit down and fear there is not enough context. So I'll throw that out to the panelists because we deal with it all the time at Career Services too.
This is going to be a disappointing answer, but long enough to get your point across and no longer. Is err on the side of paring it down. And definitely use these services. Gracious. Like, I don't have them. If I wanted to find another gig today, I would not have a career services guide to help me with that. It would be me, myself, and I, and any other friends I could enlist to support me. So while you have these different departments at your disposal, please use them. They are such gifts, and really using them will go a long way, and the hiring managers will recognize and appreciate that.
I was also going to say that once you graduate, you have lifetime services to use UIC's career services. So keep that in mind.
That's wonderful, Carol. I was going to say as well that, your cover letter shouldn't be a recap or an expansion of everything that's going to follow in your resume, your bullet points. Like, I don't need you to tell me what each of those bullet points means up above. I think the folks that make the effort of kind of having a different version of their resume for different types of jobs that they apply for is really important. So like when you're applying specifically for like a production backstage job, take those points from your resume that are very specific to that and talk about those in brief. You don't have to talk about all of your marketing experience and everything either. While that is probably also nice for, the position that you might be applying for, it's not the most direct experience that you should be highlighting. And just don't, because I hate when I read essentially the same sentence from a cover letter and then down again in the resume. It's like, you could have just sent me one of them. So just try and be careful in what you include, and try and make it the most interesting or most pertinent information to the position that you're applying for. And I think that also helps you pare it down too, because you don't feel like you have to include and explain everything that is in your resume below.
We also have Kirsten and Michelle Plant from Urbana. I don't know if you want to add anything else about services available to your students for help with resumes, cover letters.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm in the Humanities Professional Resource Center, and I think my colleague Julie Higgs, who works with me, is on the call as well. And we're always happy to talk to students about these issues. For students in the humanities, or any of those majors that prompt the question, what are you going to do with that? Often one of the skills you have to offer is those communication skills, and a well-crafted cover letter is a great way to demonstrate those, and we're happy to help you figure out how to do that. It is going to be a different kind of letter for different kinds of audiences, so we can help you figure out how best to communicate to the employer that you really want to reach.
Thank you, Kirsten.
And for students outside of Kirsten's area, we have the main campus career center for University of Illinois students, along with your own department, most of which have career professionals embedded to help you who are experts in your subject area.
Thank you, Michelle. Kathy, did you also want to address that for Springfield students?
Yeah, pretty much the same. We don't have the lifetime services that UIC has, but absolutely students are welcome to make an appointment with us through the Career Connect account, or we have career chat daily. We also have the career Zoom daily. So you have multiple options that you can work with one of the professionals or the career peers to help you with those.
Very good. Myra, it looked like you were going to say something else. Please.
I just added it to the chat. I was just going to say, I typically don't like to read anything longer than a page. So if possible, well crafted, as everyone has mentioned, but keep it to a page. I think that's appropriate.
Beautiful. All right, we're actually getting close to the end of our session today. I don't know if there are any last minute words of advice from the panelists to the students on board. Any wrap up points?
I'll say just to be kind to yourselves right now. Take care of yourselves. This is, it's tough. It's tough. It's tough every day. And then I know it must feel absolutely horrible that your college experience has been interrupted by this, like something's been taken from you in this way, plus entering into a really scary job market on top of it. Like all of this is so hard. You're having one of the hardest times of anyone in this field ever. Be kind to yourselves because of it. Be compassionate with yourselves because of it, and see how you can bolster each other and support each other during this time, because that's going to be probably the best thing to help you get through it. This is unprecedented. Recognize that and just practice compassion all around, all the way through.
I love that. That's great. And I think it's also important to just be flexible going forward for a little while. In the positions you're taking on, whether they're internships or jobs, they're most likely going to be a little different than they were previously, so organizations and companies and positions are also struggling a little bit to kind of find their footing again and how they're going to operate. Positions that were never work from home before are now work from home. And, how does that position still, work within an organization? So, being kind to the organizations as well. Sounds a little strange, but just understanding that they're going through a lot at the moment as well. So I think you're going to have to help each other through some of these, struggles that we're going to have for the next couple of years. And just everything else that Ash said was great. Be kind to yourself and keep trying. Don't give up. Don't give up in this industry, because it's a very strong industry. It's a very necessary industry, and it's an industry that has always come back. You think about through history, the arts have never gone away. Nothing so catastrophic or whatnot has ever happened to completely eliminate the arts. So it's not going anywhere. It's just going to look different for a little while. So you got this.
Yeah, I mean, same thing, Heather. I just want to add, remain hopeful. It's going to happen for you. Even if right now or in the next few months, you have to take on another job just to take a job because you need income, take it. It's okay. And continue on your search process to finding your dream job. So don't lose hope. And I already see names that I'm familiar with because I've attended a couple UIC events, and I'm like, you guys are doing the right thing. You guys are going to your fairs. You guys are connecting. Keep it up, and just be on the lookout for those internship opportunities because they are out there.
Ditto.
Well, I just wanted to chime in as well. Even though I am Associate Director for Employer Relations at UIC, and we do a lot of these events and we enjoy it, we all have our passions. And so just to be upfront with everybody here too, yeah, I was telling the panelists earlier today, I'm also a semi-retired DJ, and that's why I have my flag. I have all my recording equipment here. And yeah, Esteban, I'm a huge White Sox fan. I think you can see a little pennant there. So so, you know, support the arts. You know, as they mentioned, it's going to be around. It's exciting, and it certainly brings so much to all of us. And I think during the pandemic, I think a lot of us have seen all the live DJs online, the live jazz artists, blues artists, and there's been a lot of creativity in general in the arts, and it's exciting. So yeah, I'm glad to see all of you young people here who want to pursue all this. Be creative and use this as a resource. At UIC, we are available. Our panelists, great information. They're great people. And I think the nice thing about it is that I think everyone here is really passionate about what they do, which means all of you being here are probably passionate about what you want to do too. So feel free to reach out to people within the industry. And thank you for being here. Cindy, I don't know if you wanted to add more to that.
Just again, thank you to our panelists. You were just fantastic. Great advice, great insight. Thank you so much for sharing your time. It's been terrific. Thank you.